Appalachian Trail. A worn, wooded sign advertised the path in small, unremarkable letters. Below it, the same font spelled out, Ice Water Spring Shelter, and then, Charlie's Bunion, with arrows pointing in the direction that I was headed. The sign also identified Newfound Gap, with another arrow, pointing toward the busy parking lot that I had just passed through. I hefted my backpack and continued on. The spring sun radiated down from high in the sky, and I figured that I'd have enough time left to visit the unfortunately named side trail before spending a night in the shelter. Every few yards, a white swatch of paint adorned a tree alongside the path. The trail's famed white blazes guided me onward, and over the past 100 or so miles, I had come to rely on the markers with an almost religious devotion. My journey had begun only a few weeks prior. Starting slow, I averaged 8 to 10 miles a day, and while I didn't pay especially close attention to the calendar, I did count the days, and I was making good progress. I had crossed into the Great Smoky Mountains National Park just a few days prior, and I would be all the way through the park in less than a week. All around me, the last vestiges of winter gave way steadily to spring. Branches, bare when I had begun, now sported fresh green leaves, and wildflowers bloomed alongside the trail to mark the changing seasons. Birds chirped, insects buzzed. Eventually, I thought, I would get sick of these ever-present natural phenomena, so I tried to enjoy the little moments while I could. I turned off the path and another wooden sign marked my destination. Charles Bunion. Please control children closely. The Bunion proved to be a rocky outcropping, a rounded lump of stone, with a stunning view of the surrounding mountains. I perched a safe distance from the edge, and sat to take in the scenery. Below me, evergreens combined with the new spring leaves to create a rolling ocean of foliage, and the forest seemed to stretch for miles in every direction. I marveled at the sight. As I sat, the gray mist that gave the park its name swept in over the hills. Soon, I was looking out not over the wooded mountains, but over a sea of thick, rolling fog. I gathered my things. Around me, haze whipped over the outcropping in swirling, churning currents, and crashed in waves against the rocks. I could feel its damp weight in the air. I set out back down the side trail. As I walked, the mist descended slowly into the trees, and before long, I could see only a few yards ahead of me, and then only a few feet in front of me. I forged on though, confident in my sense of direction. Fog hung low in the branches, clinging even to the short bushes and tree roots that lined the trail. My pulse quickened. The mist moved like a living thing, and its tendrils whipped about as if searching for something to grab onto. I scanned the trees in front of me. I had only to reach the white blazes, I thought, and I would be safe. But each trunk I passed proved identically bare. The mist reduced my field of vision so completely that I could see only a single tree at a time. And by this point, I wasn't even sure that I was still on the trail that I had taken to the outcropping. I began to panic. My breath hitched in my chest. Desperately, I scoured the trunks until, at long last, I spotted it. An unmistakable white swatch. Through the mist, a short, clear blaze marked my salvation. I let out a deep breath, and half jogged to the tree, slumping, exhausted, against its trunk. I rested there for a moment. Soon, my breath returned to normal, and the mist no longer seemed so threatening. I scolded myself for panicking. If a little fog caused me so much trouble, how was I going to finish the next 1,000 miles, or the 1,000 after that? After a few minutes, I stood and began walking again. While the fog still hung thick around me, the path seemed well-worn and relatively clear. I continued on, confident that I had once again found the trail. A white swatch on the next tree confirmed it. I was back on track. The haze had nearly blotted out the sun by this point, and the late afternoon light seemed to give way almost immediately to dusk. Lingering fear nibbled at my mind, but the next tree also bore a white swatch, so I continued on. Still though, I couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was wrong. My suspicions redoubled when I spotted the familiar white blaze on yet another tree, and the one after that, and the one after that too. Indeed, as I continued on, each tree I passed bore a short swatch of white paint. Just as soon as it had slowed, my heartbeat again began to race. The blazes continued as I walked, marking every tree alongside the path. I tried to conceive of some reason why, after miles and miles of one swatch every couple of yards, the trail would suddenly require that every tree be marked. I drew a blank. With a sinking feeling, I also realized why I had felt like something was wrong. The forest had gone silent. Not the birds singing, crickets chirping quiet, that counted as silence only when compared to the constant hubbub of a city, but rather total, complete silence. My stomach dropped. The silence and the fog seemed to take on a physical weight, pushing down on me from every direction. And then I heard it. A thump. The unusual quiet seemed to amplify the noise. I stopped in my tracks, listening, and hoping that whatever I had heard was just the product of a panicked imagination. The thump again. Closer now, behind me. I forced my legs to work again, shuffling forward in a panicked half-jog. The fog seemed to be thinning, and I could more clearly see the white swatches that marked each tree that I passed. I could only hope they still marked a trail. Thump. Louder, closer. The fog was almost clear. Thump. I stopped dead in my tracks. By now, I could see the surrounding woods, and the surrounding trees, and the white swatches that marked every single one of them, in every direction, as far as I could see. Gone were the rolling hills of the Great Smoky Mountains. Gone were the green pine needles and new spring leaves. Gone too was the trail. And in its place was an endless expanse of dead, barren trees, packed densely together across a flat plain. And at each trunk, a white blaze stared back at me, mocking. The thump sounded again. It snapped me out of my stupor. It was so close now, and so loud, that my ears rang as it fell. I chanced to look behind me. In the distance, through the forest, and between the branches of the now somehow barren trees, I spotted it. An impossibly tall, thin figure, barely visible in the mist. A long, angular limb seemed to clutch at the top of the trees, just as a towering leg crashed down with a tremendous echoing thump. The mist swirled around the distant horror, churning about its legs and arms in twisting, turning currents. Indeed, it seemed almost as if the creature was the mist, and I thought that I knew then why the fog had cleared before me. Thump. I ran, I sprinted, as fast as my legs could carry me. My backpack jostled uncomfortably against my shoulders, and as another crash rocked the forest, nearly on top of me, I shrugged out of its cumbersome straps. I dropped the pack behind me. The swatches blurred into a single white streak as I bolted through the trees. Surely the next crash would land right on top of me, and the mist thing would crush me under its massive, spindly legs. Thump. I tripped. Thump. A root caught my foot and I slid painfully across the trail. I screamed as I fell, and the terrified howl of a man who knows his death to be imminent tore from my throat. I curled into a ball and I closed my eyes, waiting pathetically for the end. Thump. So close. Thump. The earth shook. Thump. This was it. Thump. The next crash landed not on top of me, as I feared that it would, but rather far ahead in the distance. Another impact rocked the forest, this one further away still. The echo faded away into the distance. Slowly and carefully, I opened my eyes. Into a bright spring afternoon. Birds tittered, and the low hum of unseen insects filled the air. I stood and looked around. Branches once again hung green with new leaves, and the mountains rolled in the distance. I spotted a white swatch on a nearby trunk, but as I looked panicked to the next tree, I found it beautifully, blessedly bare. I let out a rattling breath. The mist had cleared almost completely, and only a few vestiges of the thick fog lurked at the faraway mountaintops. Far off into the distance, I thought for a moment that I spotted the outline of a tall figure towering from the mist. But as soon as I saw it, if it had ever been there at all, the spindly form was gone. I took a few hesitant steps along the trail. My legs shook so badly that I had trouble moving, but after a few moments, I could walk at something approaching a normal pace. It took me more than 2 hours to get back to the newfound Gap parking lot. I passed at least a dozen other hikers along the way. I gave up on the Appalachian Trail that day. A ranger drove me to nearby Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I spent a single sleepless night in the small town. The next day, I flew from the regional airport back to Austin, Texas. On the short journey, I thought about what to tell my parents. They had generously agreed to store my belongings for the duration of what I had imagined would be a 6 or 7 month journey, and it had taken no storage of coaxing to assure them that I could make the trip safely. I thought too about my ordeal in the woods. By the time that I got home, I had nearly convinced myself that the night's events had been the product of some feverish illness contracted on the trail. But the moment I arrived at my parents' house, I abandoned that comforting fiction. Because when I stepped out of the airport taxi in front of my childhood home, emblazoned on the trunk of the old oak tree that, as a kid, I had climbed who knows how many times, I saw a single white swatch. I woke up excitedly in Mommy's bed, quickly remembering that today was my 10th birthday I know what you might be thinking, that I'm a little too old to be sleeping in my mommy's bed. I have a reason for this though. Ever since I was around 5 years old, almost every night I would have these horrible, gruesome nightmares where I can't move. I've been to the doctors more times than I can even count. They always say everyone has them and that it's just sleep paralysis, nothing else. But these dreams, no. Nightmares are so realistic that I can feel them and smell them. They always look so realistic and it scares me so bad. Today mommy says that we have to go to a special doctor's trip that might solve my nightmares. The first half of the day was quiet, kind of boring for a birthday. I can't complain though, because I only feel safe when I'm awake. At 6 o'clock, I got ready to go to the doctor's office. I put on my favorite blue shorts and Power Rangers shirt and slammed my door. I got ready to run down the stairs so I don't get caught in the darkness. I put on my shiny green party hat that said, in big white letters, "Birthday Boy," and then got into the old red Nissan my mommy's had since I was born. "Buckle up, birthday boy. The ride's gonna be long," mommy exclaimed. I did as mommy said and put my seatbelt on over my booster seat. Boy, was she right. The car ride felt like it lasted forever. Around 20 minutes in, I fell asleep. I woke up, still in the car, and all I could see was rows and rows of corn. I quickly realized I didn't have a horrifying nightmare. For the first time in probably 11 months, I didn't have one of those horrifying nightmares. "Hey mommy, guess what?" I said excitedly. "Oh, good afternoon, birthday boy. What's up?" "I didn't have a nightmare. Isn't that crazy?" "That's crazy. Must be birthday luck." It must have been at least an hour before we arrived at the doctor's office. I could have took another nap, but I didn't want to take the risk. If we drove a different way, we would probably end up in another state. It was dark out and I felt tired. Good thing we were about to pull up into the entrance because I was on the brink of falling asleep. There was a tall gray building and a parking garage off to the side. We parked in the garage and got out of the car. We proceeded to walk to the entrance and mommy opened the heavy glass door and welcomed me into the building. There was a room with chairs and a tall fish tank in the middle of the room. Mommy walked towards the desk at the front, while I sat down and watched the fish. The two talked and then mommy called my name, so I got up and I walked over to her. "We have to follow Miss K down this hallway to a room." I nodded and followed them down a cold hall. We took a left and at the end of the hallway there was a tall wooden door with a picture of Mickey Mouse painted on the window of the door. Miss K opened up the door for us and we walked in. This doctor's trip was not the usual trip. Nothing happened. I didn't have to do anything. Mommy and Miss K talked and talked for 20 minutes. Miss K gave mommy a small box and then we left. The drive back felt longer than the drive to the doctor's. I had to keep awake. I can't take any risk. When we pulled into the driveway, I felt a wave of tiredness sweep over me. As soon as mommy stopped and turned off the car, I unbuckled my seatbelt and I hopped out of the car. "Ready for bed?" Mommy asked me. I just nodded my head and I walked into the house. The house was cold like usual, but something felt off. "I'm just tired," I thought to myself. I walked up the stairs without the intent to brush my teeth. My room stood at the top of the stairs, door wide open. I walked through straight into my soft, welcoming bed. My room is almost perfect. I have a TV and an Xbox, and all the Legos I could ever want. The only bad thing is that my bed faces my closet. My closet has 2 doors that fold open. The closet only contains jackets hung up and a couple of boxes. I was about to fall asleep into a deep slumber when my mommy came in. "Good night, 10-year-old. Hope you had a great birthday," Mommy said peacefully. She closed the door and she left. I hated it when my door was closed while I'm in my room. The nightmares I had, they've scared me to the point where I can't be in my room without the door being open, even in the day. Actually, to be honest, I don't even like being in my room at all. Well, I'm super duper tired, so I'm going to sleep. If I have a nightmare, then I'll say what happened in it. I don't like swearing, but holy shit, I had the worst nightmare ever. The nightmare was so horrifying. I'm starting to tear up just thinking about it. I was laying in bed on my back and staring at my closet. I quickly realized that I was in sleep paralysis. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I wanted to move, but I couldn't. I wanted to blink, but I couldn't. I was waiting to see what would happen. I thought to myself, please don't come out of the closet. Please do not come out of the closet. If almost on command, the closet doors folded open. All I could see was darkness. The only thing in my vision was the dark abyss. It felt like I was staring at those open doors for days. It felt like I could travel to the ends of the earth and back, and it would still be the same. And then I smelled something. It smelled so gross. I wanted to puke as soon as I had smelt it. Imagine the smell of a decayed, rotting animal carcass and sewer water. No, not even that could compare to how grotesque the smell was. And then I saw it. It looked so horrifying. I'm practically crying as I'm writing this, thinking about how that thing looked. It was so tall that it had to be at least 10 feet tall. It was slouching over, and it had arms and legs like a human. But the elbows were backwards and the arms of that creature were so long and skinny. The hands were large and all of the fingers had to be at least 6 inches long. The nails were long and sharp. They could probably cut steaks way better than any professional cooking knife. The creature's legs were almost as long as the arms. They were as skinny and bony as the arms, and his feet were large too. It had 6 toes on the left foot and 7 on the right foot, but one of them looked to be chewed off and bleeding. The face of this creature, how horrifying the face was. If I didn't see the face, then the whole experience would have been 10, no 100 times less scarier. The face was slender and long, and it looked like the face of the Russian sleep experiment person, except this was more scary. Its eyes looked like they were about to fall out of their eye sockets, but the smile. The creature was smiling almost ear to ear, and it had to have had 3 rows of teeth, each tooth small and sharp. It didn't have ears, only holes in the side of its head. The creature was skinny and bony. The skin looked too tight on the creature's body. It was a horrible sight. It pulled the doors open and slowly stepped out, letting go of the doors and dragging its long arms across the carpet. It walked in a swaying motion, left to right and right to left. I wanted to move so bad, but all I could do was stare at it. I then noticed that it was growling and it sounded like it could barely breathe. It was in a tone so deep it couldn't be human. It then slowly looked at me and locked eyes. Tears were trickling down my face now. It looked like it knew that I was alive, that I was a breathing, living creature. It looked like it was intelligent like a human, and knew every move it made. It then turned its whole body to me and approached my bed. It lifted its lengthy arms and wrapped its arms around my legs. Inside my head, I just thought, it's just a dream. It's not real, but hell, it felt so real. It dragged me towards him, and then started to slowly drag its nails across my legs. It hurt so bad. Slow, sharp pains across all my legs. I could tell my legs were bleeding. It then suddenly stopped and then slash. It cut both of my legs in one swipe. I wanted to burst out crying but couldn't. Luckily, that was the end. It walked backwards into my closet. It was staring at me, a stare so cold it felt like it could see my soul through my eyes. It then closed the doors and it ended. Usually in my nightmares, the closet opens and that's it. Maybe a dark shadow in the closet, but that is it. I don't want to sleep tonight. I'm too scared to sleep. Today, I told Mommy I had another nightmare. All she said was, "There's nothing to be scared of. It's not real, sweetheart." I didn't care if it was real or just a nightmare. I'm scared. I wish I could just sleep peacefully without bad nightmares. That night before bed, my mommy gave me the box and Miss K gave her. I opened it up and there was a small pump bottle labeled Miss Honey's Sleep Cream. Mommy told me to pump the bottle once and lather the cream on my face. When my mommy kissed me goodnight and closed the door, I turned on the lamp on the desk next to the closet. I pumped the cream into my hand and lathered it onto my face. I turned the lamp off and I got into bed. I tried not to fall asleep. I tried and failed. I woke up in a sweat. I immediately tried to get up. Nothing. I looked at the glowing red digital clock on my desk. 4 o'clock. And then I realized the closet was opening. Slowly, it was opening. Nothing came out. Minutes passed, but nothing happened. I was waiting for that horrible thing to come out. I felt unusual, kind of noxious. It felt like something was there, but nothing ever came out. I woke up at 12, which was weird because it was a Monday. I should have been at school, I thought to myself. I got up and I went downstairs. I found my mom sitting on the couch drinking coffee. We exchanged good mornings and I asked her why she didn't wake me up. "Your temperature was high, so I didn't want to send you to school with a fever. That wouldn't be healthy after all," she told me. I did feel hot, but I didn't feel that sick. I spent the day watching TV and playing with my Legos and my Xbox. Around 5 o'clock, a doctor came. He said that he's from redacted doctor's office. That was the office that we had went to the other day, I thought. Mommy and the doctor talked for a while before he went to my room and set up a camera in the corner of it, in a position where you would be able to see everything in the room. I asked why he was placing a camera. "You might be the one causing the sleep paralysis. You might be sleepwalking and actually opening the closet and then getting sleep paralysis and getting scared later on in the night." When he finished, he walked out of the door to his car. He brought something else. When he got back inside, I asked him what that was. He said, "These are wires. We stick these onto your head and it connects to a machine that tells us important information. No need to worry though, they won't hurt you." I sighed a sigh of relief and he chuckled. "It's starting to get late, so I'm going to bed. Night, everyone." I didn't have any nightmares last night. I was really happy when I woke up and realized that I didn't have any. I'm still sick, so I'm gonna go play for a while. I just overheard a conversation and I'm freaking out. I never want to sleep again. I heard the doctor say that I don't have the ability to dream. I freaking don't have the ability to have dreams. He said that I sleep peacefully and shouldn't have nightmares or sleep paralysis. That means that everything is real, and they aren't nightmares or sleep paralysis. I'm so scared. I'm too scared to sleep. I never ever want to sleep ever again. I'm gonna try not to sleep. I can't sleep. I woke up and I can move. That's how I'm typing this. It's currently 4 o'clock. The closet is already open. I'm calm now. I feel really calm. I hear a deep voice calling me. Ryan, come here, Ryan. I'm going in. I want to go in. I feel like it's calling me. I feel drawn to the closet. If the title still says to never trust the thing in the closet, then I'm probably dead. I'm leaving now. Goodbye.